Hi there.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. This is the Side String Pros, and this is our episode number 14 of Wake Up
and Smell the Rosin.
Yay. So today we have a wonderful guest, Samuel Gaytan. Samuel is going to join us.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, wait. We left the sound on.
Oh, yeah. All you do is... Yeah, just press the mute button. Yeah.
So, Samuel, let's wait. Yes. Hi, Samuel. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Seitz. How are you doing?
Wait, Mom.
You
have to leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
1 second.
Things up as usual.
Okay. There. So we... Okay. There we go. We should be able to hear him now.
Do you have us on your phone? So you have...
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Esther. Esther is she's much smarter with computers than I am. How are you doing, Samuel?
I'm doing fine.
Thank you so much for joining us. So we are starting really on time today. Usually we're a little bit earlier, but we were trying to work things out because we're going to do something a little different technologically today. I'm going to try to, when we go into the masterclass portion, I'm going to try to mirror the screen from my iPad so I could kind of show you guys how the music works. And so I'm very, very excited, first of all, to introduce Samuel. Samuel Gaytan is a wonderful young musician here, violinist. I met him in the Rio Grande Valley a very long time ago. I think it was even the first time I came, which was in 2008. And then I went away, and then I came back, and Samuel is here, was still here. Samuel plays violin. And he has a wonderful teacher, Mr. Jeffrey Wang, who is a very prominent violin teacher here in the Valley. I think Mr. Wang actually teaches violin and viola, right? Is that correct?
Teaches the violin and the viola. That's correct.
So he's a wonderful colleague of mine, and I always love when I get to, my paths cross with him or his students. And so Samuel is one of a very talented young musicians here, up till very, very recently still in the Valley. I know you guys moved recently, so I hope the move went very well, very well. So Samuel, I wanted just to ask you a few questions before you start playing. I'm really looking forward to your ties. I've heard it before and it sounds absolutely beautiful. Plus I just love this piece, and many, many listeners know this piece. And I had requests on doing a master class on this piece because it's so well known. So I just wanted to ask you, how old are you now, and what grade of high school, if you're still in high school, are you?
I'm 16 years old now. I'm a junior in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
And how old were you when you started playing violin?
I was 6 years old, but the first time I touched a violin was when I was 5.
Oh.
There was a funny story behind it because a neighbor of ours gave me a full-size violin, and being 5 years old, my arm could barely reach the middle of the fingerboard, so I didn't really start playing until I was 6.
Oh, and so what was it? Why violin?
I was watching Nickelodeon Junior, and there was an advertisement with 2 violinists playing, and I kept on telling my mom, I want to do that, and there was kids dancing around. She thought I meant dancing, but I meant the people playing the violin.
So Nickelodeon actually had ad for violin, had something that was advertising violins. Is that what you said?
Yes, it was. Nothing but these beats. That's what it was called.
That's pretty cool. That's really nice. So yes, so we're gonna definitely chat more after you play. But right now, I just would love for you to go ahead and if you're warmed up, if you feel that you're tuned, why don't you go ahead and play through the piece? Of course, just solo when you have accompaniment, which is even better because you sound really beautiful. So here's Thais Meditation by Massenet, performed by Samuel Gaytan. theme of today's masterclass, I remember we had a request from one of the subscribers to talk a little bit more about uh, interpretation issues overall. And so I know that Samuel, you're playing so well, and I know there are always little technical things that we can all improve in the playing. But since your interpretation is so good and you're technically you mastered this piece, I wanted to just kind of have a little fun with interpretation and just a little talk about how do we even start, where do we even start when it comes to interpretation. And I know that you've done some research on this piece, and I would like for you to share this with us. Any history or anything about this piece that you know that would be very special and I think would be very helpful for people for their interpretation of the music.
This piece is from an opera, and the scene in particular is where there's this woman who's being converted from whatever religion she was from to Christianity by a Catholic monk, and she's starting to get visions of heaven. She's seeing angels. She's seeing all these different things, sephrons and songs and such. But the thing is, she's about to die. So the end of the piece is emphasizing her death, and you can almost hear rotating voices in the piece because the woman is playing certain parts, such as what you see in the vision, but then the man will respond, and the man's kind of blurred because he's yelling. He doesn't want her to die, so. You're muted, man. Can't.
Yeah, it
It
looks.
just cut out all of a sudden.
Okay, so should we take the mic out? Try.
You can sit. It's okay. Okay.
Sorry about that. I just couldn't hear.
No,
That's
no, that's
okay.
fine. That's the beauty of doing it live, you know.
Yeah, it looks. There we go.
Okay. Oh, great.
Okay,
So,
it's back.
Thank you so much.
Where did we cut off?
I can just start all over. Oh, could they hear? Could you guys hear Samuel's story about the background about the piece? Because if you didn't, I want to make sure you heard it. It was a really great.
I think they could hear Samuel, just not us.
Okay, great. So basically, what I was talking about is instrumental music is considered, purely instrumental music is considered very abstract, right? Because it doesn't have words. If it's accompanying voice, then the voice has words to explain, right? Or the dance in movements, very often it's easier to read the story through the dance, right? So because of that, some composers sometimes would assign a story to music deliberately. Just, for example, the most famous example, Vivaldi's Seasons. First of all, it's 4 violin concertos that are titled The Seasons, and each one of the concertos within those 4 has the title of fall, spring, and so forth, right? So just that title already makes you think of certain imagery, but he went even further as to actually assign a little poem to every movement of every concerto. So every concerto has 3 movements, and every movement has a little poem. So the poem was just for the listeners to read. Sometimes it is read right before, sometimes it's in the program, sometimes it's read right before the performance. But the thing is, you can imagine how that affects the listener, right? Because it right before you even heard the piece, it already gives you a certain idea as to how the piece might go. And so so later on, we have a little bit less descriptive examples. Of course, there's like Berlioz' Symphony Fantastique.
Yeah,
that's extremely
crazy.
detailed and descriptive. Mm-hmm. But then there is something like this Thais, that piece that has the title of Meditation, that actually is considered a program because it already gives you an idea that it's not going to be something like a gallop, for example. Meditation evokes certain emotions, certain images, right? Imagery in our mind. But Samuel, I love that you went even further than that and you researched about the fact, yes, because it says Thais. Thais is just actually an opera by Massenet, and the fact that it's connected to the opera, and when you know not just what the opera is about, but actually what's happening to the heroine right now at that scene, wouldn't you say that really helps you make a lot of decisions as far as even the quality of sound or maybe your dynamics?
Absolutely. As the lady is going up and ascending in her scales, when you're watching the scene, the violin's going up as well. It's a solo violin, the maestro or maestress playing in the orchestra. And the very vulgar sounds, the loud sounds, is the man trying to bring her back into the world while she's dying.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And even so, on top of that, even the dynamics, right? For example, the dynamics, piano, if we just think piano as just the volume, that's not really enough for interpretation, right? Every piano or every dynamic, like what does dynamic means to you, for example? How do you go about dynamics?
Well, I think dynamics, a lot of times the basic, definition is it's volume, but it's a scale in every piece. You choose the scale that you want between piano and forte or whatever the minimum and maximum dynamics are. And they also contribute to color, speed of vibrato. One of my favorite things about the piano dynamic is that one of my teachers said is piano is not a negative dynamic. So just because it says piano or pianissimo doesn't mean, especially in a solo piece, that you shouldn't be like mousy.
Exactly.
It's a lot of times in solo playing, it's more about color change because you still need to project. In orchestral playing, it's a different story. Or chamber playing, sometimes you really do need just like one bow hair, just like very,
exactly.
or this, whatever you're playing. But in solo playing, you still have to project and like spin the sound out towards your audience. So really a lot of it, I feel like, is increasing bow speed and, like lightening the arm. So you're still getting a good tone, but it's not like a negative tone.
Totally, I agree. So Samuel, can I ask you to start? I love the way you start the piece because would you mind playing just a few first measures for us? Just so we can, I can talk about how you're starting it. I really like what you're doing at the beginning. Let's try it again.
And tighten my bow this time. My bow has a problem and keeps on loosening as I go through the piece or any piece.
By the way, you know why that is, right? It's humidity.
I did not know.
Yeah, humidity. So what happens when you get a lot of humidity in the air, the hair absorbs it and it becomes a little longer. When it becomes drier, the opposite happens. So, next time when you're rehairing the bow, depending on where you rehair, usually the bow maker that does it They sometimes they even ask like, do you want it a little longer, or do you want it a little shorter? So for me, for example, well, right now it's winter. Technically, you're supposed to leave the bow hair a little bit longer, but because we're in Texas, if that happens a lot, if you feel like that happens every time, then next time, if you're going to the same person, for bow hair, you can say, last time it seemed like I had a lot of, like I couldn't tighten the bow enough. It seemed like, do you think maybe we could try just a little shorter? And they will try that, but of course you have to, like when you're with the same bow maker, it's easier because they kind of remember what they did last time, right?
Even like when I went to Meadowmount, it's up in the Adirondacks and it gets very humid there in the summers. And so they actually recommend, when they tell you like what all to bring, what to pack, what you need, they say get your bow rehaired short before you even come.
Yeah, because it's so humid there.
Yeah, it's just
ridiculous. Do we have any comments?
No, not yet.
No hellos or anything?
No,
hello,
we
everybody.
had no audio comments, but I did welcome everyone in the chat.
Yeah, just in case if you guys just came in, did you put what Samuel is putting?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so great. So let's start. I love the way you start. Let's do it again. Take 2. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So did you guys hear how seamlessly the sound seemed to appear from nowhere? It didn't have this at the beginning. That was exactly what this music needs. And of course, can you share with us, why did you ever feel like you should start differently, or was it just a natural instinct for you?
I don't remember because I've been playing this piece for 2 or 3 years.
But welcome to the teacher's role. Sometimes it's good to go back if you want to explain. Like if someone asks you, why do you start like that? What would you say?
I would say it was a mix of hearing it and then just trying to replicate that soft tone myself.
Would you say that this would sound wrong if I started? But does that sound wrong to you?
Yes.
Yeah. So you see, this is actually, and this is what I'm getting to. You don't have to always try to explain things. It's kind of like, if I tried, how people try to take an emotion like love or hate, and they try to explain it in words. It's very difficult and clunky, and it never really is anywhere near what that feeling would really, really feel like, right? Or if you try to explain color in words, but there's always some explanations feel really right and some feel really wrong, right? So that's kind of, a lot of times interpretation is first about doing something that doesn't feel wrong, and so that is actually really good. For me, a lot of times when I'm just playing a piece, it's brand new, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out what's going on there, at least my first instinct would be like, oh, this feels wrong, so I'm definitely not doing that, So have you ever had that, moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, explaining, then so very often just instinct, so your instincts are very correct here. Mm-hmm. But if we had to explain really, like, obviously when I started teaching, I realized a lot of times I have to try to explain things. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like learning the language, language is a very intuitive thing, but you can learn it, right? Like for me, for example, a child learns differently. As an adult, when I had to learn English language, when I came here when I was 25, at first I learned it very mechanically. I just had to, and I basically just thought Russian phrases and I tried to translate them, and it was a cumbersome process. And of course, that is not the best way to speak language, but that is the only way I knew how to learn it, right? But as I was using the English language more and more, I stopped using that clunky pattern, and it became more and more natural to me. So now I don't have to really think in Russian, I just think in English and I speak in English, right? So a lot of times musical issues are like that, even though of course you can't really explain it as math, and you don't want to keep it as math. And when you try to explain, sometimes it's clunky, just like when you're trying to speak a new language, but sometimes it's important to get through that phase so you can at least start somewhere, right? So here, I'm thinking, why does it feel that this is a better way to start? I think it goes back to meditation. It goes back to the fact that we have this piano and dolce, or no, is that dolce? Yeah, I think that's dolce at the beginning. Andante means a walking kind of pace. So we definitely don't want any aggressiveness at the beginning, right?
And
I think, yeah.
Suavite.
Yeah, and
That's like
do means twice, right? Or whatever. I don't know French, but suavite means soft. So it's not just about being quiet, right? It's being soft, being very gentle and sweet. And so obviously,
like if you're picking up a little baby bird.
oh, that's sweet. I love that. You know, how do you touch the baby bird versus a Lego piece that you throw at your brother?
We both did this.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so this is definitely, so let's try now, let's demonstrate. How about you start with an accent? Just start with an accent for me. Yes. So, and now start seamlessly. This was perfect. Now, I would like to explain what was happening. When it's two things that are the most important here, and Samuel, you can sit down if you want to, definitely. You know, you don't have to stand up all the time. So, but do whatever you feel most
We
comfortable.
don't have that problem with our cello guests.
Yeah, that's right. You know, you're the first. I never thought of that. Yeah, so feel free to sit down and rest. You know, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. So the two things, you know, because I feel like this kind of seamless start to the sound to the sound is not taught very often. So it's a wonderful, actually, witness of what a wonderful teacher you have that you're able to do this, because a lot of times this process is not explained very well. And so what happens? We have two most important forces in sound production. And they're not the only two, but these two are absolutely necessary. We have the weight that I like to think of it kind of going vertically like this. And then we have the bow speed, and I think of it always as horizontal. It's very generalized. So basically, your proportion, the balance between how much weight per how much speed of the bow you're giving basically affects everything, your articulation, your sound, your volume. And articulation is the very first thing that we hear when we start. So therefore, the first time when you played with an accent, as I asked, you did a great job. What happens is the bow is at a complete stop. You put the weight into the string first, and then you move, right? And that's how you get that little k. So kind of like at the start of the syllable, you have a consonant. That's
You're starting like from the string with weight already versus like coming from above and
yeah.
yeah.
So weight first, movement after the weight. Now, so if you want the opposite, you simply reverse that, which is a little tricky because you have to be very, very good, which you are, in your bow hold at the lower part of the bow, because you have to control the weight. You can't just let all the weight flop into the string. You have to make sure that, and so if you would like to practice, let's do this exercise. For someone who, I know you do it very well, but for someone who would like to learn how to seamlessly start the sound, the very first exercise, I would, like Esther mentioned, barely with pretend that you're starting with just one hair, and just try to literally look at your bow, tilt it. I mean, you don't have to tilt all the time. It's just we're doing extreme, right? To explain. So let's see if you could just play with a literally single hair at the frog. Just like that. Great job. So basically, this is what you need. This is what happens at the beginning. Now, this is very slow motion. What happens? This is how you feel. Of course, I like to make some contact with the string, but I kind of pretend like that, almost like that. I'm not putting any weight, definitely not any arm weight, but not even bow weight, just enough contact with the string so I can touch it with as little hair as possible. But then, so that the first thing I do is movement. And then I put in the weight. So you want to start that? You can start like this, move, and then gradually ease in the weight.
Start off a little too hard.
Yes, very nice. Of course, if you do it like this, it creates a bubble, and we don't want the bubble. That's why I mentioned this is a very exaggerated, slowed down way to just get yourself to understand, and your body to understand that you can actually start like that. You can. The hardest part is you have to have a really good setup, which you do. You have one beautiful bow arm. You have a really nice bow hold, and so that allows you to hold the bow weight without getting stiff. Because that's the problem with a lot of people, with a lot of violin players, when they try to hold the weight of the bow, they're not balanced enough, so they get super stiff, and then that doesn't really work, right? So this is basically how this beginning works in technical means. But I want to talk a little bit about the phrasing. And you can sit down for a second, because since we can't really play the bass line here and you play there, so I'm going to be you for a minute. And Esther is going to be my bass line. And so I want...
Time to shine.
Yes, cellos rule. You know, we love bass lines, right? So Samuel, what I would like to talk is your pacing of the phrase was so beautiful, because I didn't feel that the phrase was stuck, even though you played without the harmony, which is amazing. But because you really know the music so well, that I think inadvertently you remember how the harmonies go, because you probably heard it many times, and that helps you to make the phrase go somewhere, because I could tell your phrasing went exactly with the harmony. And let me explain. So there's this term harmonic pace or harmonic rhythm. How does it? Harmonic, we'll call it harmonic pacing.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. So it refers to how often the composer changes harmony per measure or per beat. And so in tonal music, strictly tonal music, like this piece, for example, of Massenet, phrasing is very heavily dictated by the harmonic changes. And so anytime when harmony changes fast, it really propels the phrase, and it's really easy for the listener to see where things going. Mm-hmm. But when the harmony is static, that's when kind of the burden of phrasing and leading the phrase is completely on the soloist, because we have to make sure we kind of help the listener to direct the attention of the listener to where the phrase is going. And let me show you. So we're going to play the first, just a few measures, what we rehearsed before. Mm-hmm. And I want you to notice Esther's bass line. You will see that for 1, 2, 3, how many? About 6 measures. I'll show you later. Maybe I'll do that later. Mm-hmm. But so you'll see how for quite a few measures at the beginning, she's going to play the same note in the bass. And then you'll see how the bass line starts changing. And I think you will feel how that is helping the phrase to continue. So let's start. Let's start from the beginning. So we'll do arpeggios, first measures, and then just the bass line. So now I want to mirror the screen.
Okay.
Mirror the screen. So I'm going to show you in the music. If you've noticed, so the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures, she played the same note in the bass line, which was a D. And see. Thank you. Yes. Wow. Amazing technology. So let me show you. Esther, can you do it again for us without me?
Yes.
So here is, we're in D major. So here we have the first measure. Oops. The first measure, we have a D, and a D, another D, another D. 5 Ds in a row. So can you play that for us?
From the first measure?
Yeah, from the first measures. That's a tonic. Still a tonic. Another measure of D major. 4, 5. Okay, that just the harmony alone, and the rest of the voices we're not playing just for convenience, but you see how it's basically stayed at the same level. Harmonically speaking, nothing is going on. Now let's play it together, just that D major part. And so here is, I have to play 3 measures of melody, and that's what Samuel did so well. But at this point, the harmony is not helping me at all to lead the melody. So I have to make sure I'm not stuck. I'm not slowing down too much. I'm leading the phrase, right? Before we get to finally different notes. So let's just play the beginning. So just this introduction. See how satisfying. So that was a G. This beautiful note in D major. This is a 4. So that wasn't that super satisfying? And Samuel, you did it so well, because what Samuel did, he really, settled into that beautiful B in the melody. Because I think you probably remember very well how the harmony goes. So
when you think about it, like meditating, when you meditate, a lot of times, like people have a drone or something in the background, and so that kind of unchanging harmony is very meditative, but you do still have to be able to move through it.
This is actually a great point, because the piece is called meditation, which means thinking, praying, all of that, the same terms. Yeah,
it's calm.
Maybe,
it's not tumultuous.
Yeah, I never thought of that. The composer probably does it deliberately, right? So you have this beautiful melody that is going all over the place. Look at the jumps. So you have the last beat of the first measure takes me more than an octave, from A to B, and then so I'm spanning. The lowest note in this phrase is A, the highest is D, and I'm spanning that range in just 1, 2, 3, 5 beats. Wow, that's a really beautiful flourish. So Esther, I love the point you made, because I guess you did it on purpose to balance out, this really beautiful, almost soaring melody, but because we have that repetitive harmony under it, it really helps us to have that very meditative kind of state, right? So Samuel, I want to ask you one thing. Have you thought of how your maybe bow distribution affects your phrasing? Have you ever played around with that?
Yes, I have. When I try to use my bow in a faster way for certain notes, maybe like the opening note, I'll start to go a little fast towards the end of it to make it crescendo a little bit, and then I'll slow down when being softer.
Great. So can we try something? So again, you have a really, really good natural instinct, and I really don't want to mess with that. But just again, so it's a masterclass. I want to talk about, because probably when you just started playing that piece, it probably didn't feel that natural, right? So so there are 2 ways of learning, and I've traditional violin pedagogy, you usually start when you're very young, and so at the younger age, you can't really logically explain a lot of things to kids, but they have a huge advantage because they have time on their side. So a good teacher, by just giving you certain repertoire and certain goals, kind of guides you so that you a lot of the things that you get are very instinctive, right? So you kind of feel, oh no, this feels wrong, this feels right, and instinctively you're right. Now, the beauty of it is a great way to learn, and that's how a lot of things that I've learned, because I started early, I've learned like this, because again, that's the beauty of starting early as a child, where you have the luxury of time, right? You have a lot of time. Now, sometimes, if you have to start later, or if you just don't have that much time, maybe if you're learning as an adult, you don't really, adult, where adult mind works better with logical explanation, right? With more calculation. So in this case, very often just figuring out your bow speed helps, right? So Esther, how would you distribute on cello if you had to distribute bow here?
For the melody? Probably slower in the beginning to save bow for the last 16th, and then a lighter, faster bow for that triplet to get back to the frog. But probably not getting all the way back to the frog. Maybe like somewhere here, so I could keep that light sound.
Very nice. What do you think, Samuel? Do you like that solution?
I do. Can I hear it one more time?
Let's see what you.
I'm not logical. That's my problem. I'm always gone by instinct.
It's a little different for me too,
Yeah, for cello,
because I'd probably not start right at the frog. I'd probably start like here. And slow down there.
Beautiful. Wow. On the fly. She didn't rehearse this. Great job. Yeah, that's, and she, okay, Samuel, so I want to try something. So, on the cello, one of the things my teacher always told me, never start piano at the frog. But to be honest, sometimes I like to start because I feel I have a little more control here. But of course, you don't have to start.
For you guys, you're at a different angle.
But definitely somewhere here feels good, right? So do you prefer to start at this note? Do you feel like you have enough bow if you don't start at the very frog?
I don't start at the very frog because for me it's a little too heavy, but I start at the quarter bow, which is just a little bit away from the frog, about right here.
So let's try it.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking, the way I'm thinking, if I want to drive the phrase, the couple of things that my biggest problem is making sure that my sound doesn't die all the time on my down bow, right? And I remember that's the first thing you said, that you try to accelerate a little bit toward the end of the first note to prevent that from happening on the very first note, right? Which I think is very, very wise, right? So, and then the next, where do you want to have these little flourishes of sound, right? So you don't want your sound just stay like this or go straight down or straight up. So you want it to be more like in nature, like in nature we have waves. Very rarely you see things in nature that maybe birds fly straight up, but then they always go down somewhere, right? So to make it natural, and if you, anytime, one of the ways that I plan my flourishes in sound is on up bows. So every time I see an up bow, it is the easiest opportunity to maybe increase the sound a little bit, right? And so fortunately enough, the way this piece is bowed at the beginning, right? You have kind of long down bows. So you just want to make sure on the down bow that you don't lose the sound. But on the up bow is where you make a nice flourish, right? And then you can still plateau on the next long note. And the next up bow, you can make another crescendo. And then after that, you can do whatever you want in the next measure, because it's even. You have a down bow in the third measure of melody and the up bow completely even. So here you can do whatever you want, right? So you want to try, just explore that and think of well, the first note, obviously we don't want it to die, but then after that kind of do a crescendo on the up bow, then plateau at the same level but without crescendo, and then down bow, then do another crescendo, then plateau a little bit on the down bow. Let's see what happens.
Okay. You wanted me to stop here or to?
Yeah, that's really good. I really like that. Was it easy for you to make crescendo?
I would say the second measure was a little harder, maybe because it was on a higher position.
Yeah.
You're like, if I mess up, it's gonna be louder.
Yeah, but in the left hand, but in the bow arm, on the up bow, it's definitely easier to make crescendo on the up bow than a down bow, right?
Right.
So when you're thinking, yeah, so this is, I actually heard it. It was really well. Now let's see. Do we obviously don't want to make too much crescendo, right? Because we want to save the big guns for later. So here's where you could think about. That first, where remember that low B's where the first change of harmony happens, right? So we want to make sure that before that we don't give away too much of a sound, but we don't want it to be static, which you did really well. And I think that's what you instinctively were doing. You were using your up bows to kind of speed things up a little bit in the bow speed, and then you were very, very nice and light on the down bows, which is actually against the instinct. Because, and that's why it's so difficult sometimes to phrase something like this, because if we do what we want naturally, we want to go super fast and heavy on the down bow, and then sorry, I did it on purpose, because right, if we go with the gravity fast, and then it's very slow on the top, on the bottom, on the up bow, right?
Don't scare your audience.
Sorry, I'm sorry, guys.
I'm saying like for him.
Oh yeah. So this is, believe it or not, it's a very basic thing, but that is one of the hardest things to. This is the habit that I see a lot in beginners and intermediate playing, and this is one of the hardest habits to acquire is to equalize your down bow, make your bow lighter and not so fast, and make your up bow a little heavier and faster, right? And so the beginning of this piece is actually one of the best exercises, because if you notice, your first down bow is 3 beats, and the first up bow is only 1 beat. So right off the bat, it encourages you to go light and slowly on the down bow, and then the up bow definitely wants to drive right into that drop. So this is how I like to think of bow speed when I am some of the very first things when I'm thinking of phrasing. Those are the things I'm thinking. If I don't know where to start, if there's harmony to the piece, I definitely, first of all, in the tonal music, of course, when the music is not so obviously tonal, it's a little bit less obvious. But here, number one, so if you're starting to learn something like this, make sure you know where the harmony is leading you, and especially be aware of parts of the melody where the harmony is very static, because that means this is where you have to work and you have to figure out where you're leading. And one of the easiest ways to lead is by changing bow speed, right? And so here's a good exercise. Samuel, let's try this. It's a very basic exercise. How about we try? It's better to do it with a metronome, but Esther, can you be our metronome?
Sure.
Can you just clap, or you can play one note? Yeah. So
fast?
Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is so you have your metronome, Esther, the metronome going a little faster. Yeah, that's good. So for example, I have these 4 beats, so I can imagine I want to have 4 beats on down bow and up bow all the time, but I'm gonna deliberately use different amounts of bow. So for example, let's try this. The first pattern will be, we'll use most of the bow on 1, and then for 3 we're gonna stay here, and the same on the way back, like this. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you do that? Oh, it probably won't work across because her claps are different. But try, just think, don't worry, just do it like that with that beat in mind.
Okay.
It feels different, right? Now,
Yes.
if you could clap, let's try. I'm going to do the opposite.
Okay.
So again, the same tempo. I'm going to do, so I'm going to do 3 at the beginning, save as much bow as I can on the first 3, and then use up the rest. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And especially, so try that. So the trick here is switching when you get to the frog at a very fast tempo, immediately switching to a very light and slow bow speed. Try that. So think of the beat in your mind, you know, and try that. Very nice. You see, it's tricky, right?
It is. It's against my instinct. It's like, whoa.
Yes. So now let's do the trickiest part. And that is, so this is probably what helped me the most when I realized that I can do this, and I'll show you the next step. This is what started helping me to really phrase longer. So that, because before, very often I couldn't understand. I would try to phrase a long phrase and it would just be dying on me, no matter how much I tried to keep it going, until I thought of this. Okay, so this is what you're gonna count again for me. Yeah, you can do it on the cello again. Yeah, I like that. Oh yes, a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you notice, up till now, I just gave you one pattern and you did it exactly the same on up bow and down bow. So now I'm gonna mirror it. So I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do on the down bow, I'm gonna go slow, fast, fast, slow. Yeah. So what I'm gonna do, so on the down bow, I'll do one pattern, but on the up bow, I'll do the opposite of that pattern. So I'm gonna end up moving slow, fast, fast, slow, not slow, fast, right? So let's try that. So this. Yes, so can you try that?
Hopefully I don't scratch it up.
Yeah, no worries. Even slower. Try even more contrast. That was really good. Now try to make like ridiculously big contrast between saving the bow and then going super fast, and make sure that your up bow matches the speed of your down bow, and then go as quick as you can to the frog and then stay there for the rest. That was really good. Just exaggerate that even more.
Okay.
Yeah, but you slowed down. You slowed down on the up bow, or maybe it was the mic, but it sounded like you slowed down your bow on that bow.
Okay.
No, you're doing slow. Or can we stop sharing actually?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
here,
So So you did slow, fast, and then slow, fast. But I want you to do slow, fast, fast, slow. Remember, it's that part from going from slow, fast to fast, slow. Right? Try it again.
Can you do it one more time so I can try to model
Yeah,
it?
let's do it again. So remember, it's a mirror image. It's not exact copy. So let's do it. Ready? Go. Fast, fast, slow.
So it's like an arch. It's like slow, fast, slow.
Yeah. So basically, you end up. It sounds like you have one big bow, and try that. Yeah. That was great. Now, can you exaggerate and can you try? And it's very hard to make sure that your bow speed is not changing at all when you're going from down to up, and try to really exaggerate it even more. That was great. Do it again.
Oh, like I can see myself. That'll make it easier. All right. I always, when I'm trying to practice my bow distribution, I always look in front of the mirror to see how am I distributing it, and it always helps my phrasing. So
you know, I'm so glad you brought it up, because you know, your eyes are your best helper when it comes to bow distribution. And mirror is great, and also when you're playing, just for bow distribution, you can even watch, you know, watch that cross between the string and the hair. Yeah, because the bow distribution is very difficult to master without actually looking at the bow. So I'm so glad you brought it up. And yeah, when you're in front of the camera, it's great.
Yeah, Zoom is great for that
Yeah.
reason.
Mm-hmm.
You can see, that's the great part about it.
Hello. I think he says
that's my dog.
who is that? Can you tell us who that is? Can you
Okay, so Sunny is my German Shepherd. I have a border collie whose name is Flash, and then a beagle who's Ginger, and she's 14 years old.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Little doggy pair.
So at any time, if they want to be seen on camera, feel free to show us. Okay, so that was really good. Let's try it one more time, and I'll try to exaggerate it. So the biggest trick in this exercise, just to be very sure of going fast, right? That going from down to up, so that your bow speed doesn't flail at all, and it's really, really, you know, fast and even, and then you only slow down, you know, at the end. Let's try that.
I'm gonna try to see. So.
Yes. Yes, very nice. So basically, this kind of arching speed, what I realized, I remember, this is one of the most important things to teach yourself. And of course, this is a very exaggerated way, but very often, you know, when you look at the phrase, it's not really phrased by the bow. You usually need to use at least a couple of bows to, you know, for a part of the phrase. And so what I realized, my habit was always to mimic on my up bow exactly what I did on my down bow. So if on my up bow I did this, then my natural instinct was to do the same on the up bow. And you can see how that would really break up the phrase, right? So for example, here, you see, immediately it's the arch. Now if I do the opposite, you see how the phrase is that if I copy exactly what I did on the down bow, but if I can get past that, and if I could communicate that same bow speed to my next bow, whether I slow it down or not, it doesn't matter. The idea is, and this brings me to this very, very important issue of what do we do about changing our bows? Because in the piece like this, obviously sometimes, you know, I think we get freaked out about the fact that we think that anytime we change bow direction, it's too obvious. So I've seen violinists try all kinds of weird tricks to, you know, supposedly hide it. Well, you know, I want to tell my students or myself when I do it, just you have to let go of it. It's physics. You cannot really, the more you try to hide it, the more obvious it is. But what you can do, you can be like an illusionist. You can distract your audience from the fact that you're changing the bow. And the best way to really make sure that your bow change doesn't interrupt your phrase is to really focus on what bow speed you want at the end of one bow and the beginning of the next one. And the better you match that bow speed and your vibrato, the better chances are that no one will even ever notice that change of the bow. So that's, like I said, for slow pieces, for me, that was one of the best things I've ever learned.
We're getting some comments.
Oh, great.
Babula was a text. She said
Oh,
it was
yes.
great. She's watching.
Oh,
My
my
grandma,
mom is
her
here.
mom.
Привет.
Eddie Malavi texted. He
Oh,
said
hi,
it was
Eddie.
great.
Thanks for watching.
Martina says, "Wow, so cool
Hi,
to watch you
Martina.
break that down." Balthazar says, "Wonderful." So basically, consensus, Samuel, is that you sound amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody's
Bravo.
really enjoyed your playing, and the teaching as well.
Oh, good. Thank you, guys. Any questions? Any particular?
No, just positive comments.
You know, I know we have some flutists there. We have a violist. If you guys would like to pitch in, I would like to hear how it translates into your instruments. I think, Samuel, I want to ask you right now, since we talked about my problems with this piece that I would have an hour. I want to see, do you have any questions in particular for anything that you would like to just work on a little bit?
I would say my bow changes. I always make my bow changes a little too obvious.
Bow change where?
Every piece.
Why don't you pick a spot?
Okay.
But that was beautiful, but apparently you want to do something differently. So what was it? What is it? Where exactly does it bother you? You mentioned the bow changes. Which ones bother you exactly?
Those where it was the dynamic was piano, but I did that in the performance because I was nervous. Because when I'm nervous, I start to get shaky, bro. So now I'm calm. I did it right.
So why don't you play the beginning of that snippet for me? I think I know what you mean. So if I understand correctly, you want it to be a little bit smooth because obviously later on you want it to be what you were doing, the articulation, it's very dramatic. So you want the notes to be a little bit more detached, right? Once you get to the forte. But at the beginning, so you're saying you would like it to be a little bit less noticeable when you change the bow, is that it?
Right.
Okay, so let's
the
try
harmonic.
again from the same spot.
Right there.
You know what? Actually, this is what you're doing. You're mimicking. So bow speed, instead of staggering it like we did in this exercise. You remember? You start slow, you go fast, and then you start slow again. And you go fast. And that's what creates that exaggeration. I'm exaggerating. You see?
The sausage
Yeah.
bars.
Yeah. But why? Remember what we practiced when we practiced this? So I'm not saying you don't have to go much faster, but basically what I'm asking you, when you get to the end of your first up bow, can you make sure that you're not dropping the bow speed at all? Can you match the bow speed exactly when you start the up bow instead of going back to the beginning speed of your down bow? You see what I'm saying? So you kind of go slow, fast, and then slow, fast. Instead, how about we go slow, fast, the same speed, and then you can slow down after the second bow.
I fixed it.
That was better, right?
Right.
So let's do it again. Do it even more. Yes. And now you can go even further. You can do it with every bow because I think what you want, you're very I understand you want kind of seamless flourish, right? To just so it's a little bit of a crescendo, but it keeps going. So if you do it on every bow, so you hear that?
Yeah,
So,
I was gonna say
yeah.
actually, I think one of the things that you're hearing that you feel like, I think it's just because you need to make the whole phrase more continuous. So using that bow like ba da 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 dum, and not seeing it as ba da 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 dum, but seeing it as one big arc. I think that's gonna really help connect everything.
That's really good. Yeah.
That's
so
right. Because I
so
was thinking metronomically. I'm thinking da 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 da. When you push it like that. make
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Like just thinking in longer phrases rather than having it broken up. Try that. I think that's a good
And
thing to
here,
try.
I'm so glad you brought it up. Can I share with you one of my crazy tricks? What I do? So, you know how when we try to learn a fast piece, we usually practice it slow? Well, with the slow pieces, Esther, you nailed it. One of the biggest problems with phrasing, it's kind of like, like impressionist painting. If you look at it too close, you can't understand because you need to see the bigger picture to see what the image is. So when you play a slow piece, what happens, because you hold on to the every note for so long, you forget where you're going. So what if we for just for you to help you understand and feel continuity, if we increase the tempo, like really, really much faster, maybe. What if we played it like that in just two bows?
Oh,
That was easy to continue it.
it was. And
One is good. Actually, do this. Since you have such a great bow technique, you can do it in one bow. Start up bow and try that. So can you start softer and exaggerate your crescendo even more? Wasn't that easy?
it was.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of it.
So now how would you? Yeah. So now you feel what we call a musical gesture. What it means is that because when you increase the tempo, it's just easier not to break things up, right? And so what I do usually, once I feel that, and I would put crazy bowings, like obviously that's not the bowing you'd want to play with, but it's the kind of bowing that helps us to feel that these notes belong together, right? So now what my next step would be, let's try the same tempo, but we're going to separate the bows, but keep the same bow speed. That means you're going to use much less bow. So you're not going to, because if you start using too much bow, so you're going to keep the same bow speed, which will be about, so, but separate. So you see the idea? So you're going to do it in the same tempo. And what I want you virtually in your mind continue playing legato. So kind of fool your body. Think that you're still playing legato. Remember what it sounded like. But now with whatever bowings you normally would be playing there, just let yourself mimic that sound that you just made. Try that. Yes, the second time was really good. Guess what? You did the complete opposite. That was really good. The first time you noticed, you started. So basically, so going back and forth, what I would do, the more you practice like this, really notes that you feel should belong together. Esther was so right. A lot of that happens, like your bow speed often follows what you hear. And so once you start hearing it as a unit, then you start mimicking that and it's easier to mimic that with the proper bowings, but still in a faster tempo. And then little by little, you can slow down the tempo, and it kind of all falls into place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it sounds great when you're thinking of those things. I think it really makes a difference.
So with the cello, what do you guys do, like as far as in a piece like this? What are other things that you would be concerned about when it comes to phrasing, interpretation, style, anything that maybe we haven't talked about?
I think we really talked about most everything. It's mostly just, it's about keeping the phrase long and also keeping the bow, the distribution in mind. Also, using vibrato to your advantage.
Yes, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to mention your vibrato is so suitable for this style. It's French music, so it can be, one of the fun things about playing French romantic music, it's kind of over the top, right? So what I really enjoyed is your vibrato quality, but also you were very good at adding those slides, like, using your shifts very well. So you weren't constantly trying to hide your shifts, but you have a really good instinct for allowing some of the shifts to be heard. So why, I'm just curious, how do you come to hear that? Do you hear that and you mimic it, or did you decide that it would, what how does that work in your in your mind, the whole process?
I heard it and I mimicked it. My teacher, so we got the piece and he just went through phrase by phrase on how to play every phrase. And then eventually that started to develop my instinct for it later on. So
But
now more
it just feels
instinctive.
right? It feels right to you, right? There's that feeling where, in some places you don't want to do it, and in some you do, right? And so one of the things, and this is so great, I like that you are confident. It actually is a very mature thing, because it shows me that you're confident enough that you're allowing your shifts to show. Because a lot of times with younger musicians, or maybe someone who is just learning, mastering violin, the first desire is to hide every shift, to hide everything, because it's a little scary. It's so the fact that you have such good shift technique, that you can shift so smoothly and you can use that to your advantage, it's very, very commendable. It's really high level of playing, musicality. And for me, I actually love the fact that we have shifts. And my philosophy on it is that, how sometimes people would come to you and say, your violin sounds like it's singing. It doesn't even sound. Have you heard that? I'm sure people told you, it sounded like it was singing, like human voice. And
Keep
guess
it
what?
singing.
Yeah. And you know what? One of the major secrets is when you actually add a little bit of visibility to your shifts, because when the singer is singing on a vowel, if you're singing you see how the voice naturally will connect between the notes. Now if you're singing on the consonant, da 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 da, that doesn't happen. And so that's the thing. So when you can nail that balance of showing letting some shifts to show and some not, it really mimics the words, the speech in the singers, singing. And that's what you've done so well. And I think that is a great quality. So if you are doing it instinctively, that's great. But the more aware you are about how you're using it, and the more you listen to singing, the more you will understand how great you can, what a big advantage it is. So that was really good.
Balthazar commented, I'm going to apply some of these bow distribution techniques with air management. He plays the flute.
Wow.
This is so helpful and a big challenge among wind players. And he also said, really enjoying the dialogue between performer and guest artists. I don't get to see that often in masterclass.
Oh, thank you guys. Okay, I always forget to do this, but guys, please give us likes, because that really helps the algorithm to send it out. So whoever is watching, unless you hate it, go ahead and like it, and of course share. And but that
did
really,
anyone hate this beautiful playing?
not Samuel.
No,
I
I
was
know.
talking about myself.
I'm convincing them to
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
Saying,
that's
well,
true.
There's no
Samuel,
way
I'm
you
sorry.
could hate it,
Yeah.
so you have to like
No,
it.
exactly. Yeah, that's good. But Sam, of course, I didn't mean you when I mentioned
No,
that. Yeah,
Fine.
so, and that's
But
what,
like it.
that's our ulterior motive of having guests like that, because you just cannot like it. But just, I know you just make sure and press that like button, because apparently I was reading up on, how to make it a little bit more accessible to more people. And apparently when we get likes, it really helps algorithm understand that it's a good video. So anyway, yeah, so thank you so much, Baltazar. And flute is all about breathing, just like singing. Isn't that amazing how it all connects? So anything else, Samuel, you wanted to work on today?
There's something I want to mention since you brought up breathing. So another way to think about a phrase is a breath. So on the beginning, da, da, that's one breath.
Yes.
Like an exhale. And then if you're trying to look for how to build up that instinct, just see where in a way where it breathes. And naturally you'll start crescendoing and decrescendoing.
You know,
So
it's great what you said, because to me, I always think of exhale when I think of down bow. I mean, not that I do that, because don't breathe like that, you get hyperventilated. But in my mind, actually, I always seem to think that down bow is a lot like an exhale, because it kind of happens naturally, right? But up bow is something you have to work a little bit more. So, and this is such a great point. Oh my goodness, because again, you know, and so many things we just do without thinking, because violin is all backwards. You know, playing is backwards. It's not a natural thing. So naturally, you know, if you think of breathing, what comes first? Like, I think you have to exhale. I mean, inhale. My English. You have to inhale to exhale, right? And so technically, we work the hardest on the inhale, and the exhale happens naturally. But the problem with playing, it's actually backwards. Usually when we have the most important notes in the measure, we usually play down bow. And then a lot of times weaker notes, we play up bow, which is the opposite. And so this is, if you can start, instead of thinking down, up, down, up, down, up. For example, if you play something, you know, something détaché. I need to, my bow hasn't been rehaired for a year already. Oh my goodness, because I'm afraid to mail it and I don't go anywhere. But anytime you play détaché, if you really think that down bow is 1 and up bow is 2, you end up in this catch-22 and your bow is dying. But if you can think and down, up, down, it becomes so easy. Try that. So try just the détaché stroke, but try starting it up bow. And relax. Think of it. Inhale, exhale. So don't even work on the down bow. Just try that syncopated, actually kind of syncopated rhythm. From here. So relax this and really bend from your arms. So really throw your bow up. Sort of like, so you see that, so of course now when you even it out, so you can détaché like this for a very long time, you won't get tired. But if you think, before you know, you start getting tired. So this is also one of the very important things in order to create that rounded, you know, kind of phrase that doesn't keep dying on you. This is also a very good exercise. Very nice. So anything else? Oh, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So you said that you started playing when you saw the violin for the first time when you were 5 and you started playing when you were 6. Is that what you said?
I saw the violin on Nickelodeon Junior when I was 3, and then I touched the violin when I was 5, and then started playing at 6.
So how did you get to the violin to even touch when you were 5? Where did that violin come from?
Our neighbor, my mom told one of our neighbors, my son wants to learn the violin. Can you just give us the violin and you can play around with it? Okay, so they bring this size violin to a 2'2" 5-year-old, and this was me. This is where I could reach, and then the bow was a full-size bow, so I could.
You even tried to
go right here, but
that is so. And so you fell in love with the violin.
I did.
Right away. So, what? I want to ask this, and I mean, I didn't even. If you could look back and feel like, what was the time like? Did you ever have this kind of time where you really started feeling that you're really making a progress? You know, because sometimes you can practice and practice and it feels like the progress is so slow and you don't really feel like you sound like a violinist. But then I think we all have that certain moment, in our lives where we realize, oh my goodness, I actually sound like good or something. Have you ever had a moment like that, or maybe certain moments, if you remember, if you want to share with us?
I have a couple of certain moments like that. I think the biggest ones was when my teacher placed me in some high school competitions. From there, my technique really progressed because the challenging pieces I had to practice for. So there, I heard myself. I had to take a video. That's how I was practicing, and I heard that I'm really improving. I'm not middle school or intermediate level. I'm growing into a more professional level. So that was what it was for me.
That's great. It's very encouraging, and I like, the video aspect is so helpful, isn't it? When for me, I was, of course, much older when I was able actually to use video recording, and I remember that I was surprised at how different the experience was when I was actually watching my performances. It was, a lot of things were much better than I thought, and some things were not as great that I thought were good. So, but it is very important, I think appreciating what you've accomplished is so important, because our art is so difficult. The technique of playing violin or any string bowed instrument, any instrument, classical instrument especially, is any instrument, I think, to really get to the point where you're actually playing music and not just notes. It is such a complex task that I think our progress is so slow. So it's very important, when you have those moments, just going back and reminding yourself of how rewarding that was, right? And so thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to ask, what are your goals with the violin? What do you see yourself? How much of a role with violin maybe you see playing in your future? And just maybe what you're planning to do, or what you're doing now you feel like you continue doing?
I plan on progressing it to a professional level. So I want to do soloist, but I'm also thinking I would love to conduct too. But mostly I've learned how to play this. So I'm gonna go for more of the soloist and orchestral route as my next step, I suppose.
Wonderful, wonderful.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, so, you've accomplished so much already, and, you sound beautiful. And I want to ask you, what do you think, how did your parents play? Do you feel that your parents' role was important in uh, allowing providing this experience for you? Just the fact, what do you feel the role of your parents was in the whole process of you, from the very start up until now?
I think it was fundamental. They're great parents. They not only bought me a violin and paid for all the lessons, but they encouraged me the whole way to keep on playing. And my mom would, hey, go practice when I was little, because you don't have discipline when you're little. You just want to go play video games. You don't want to play the violin. So she helped me with that. And then with the competitions, and encouraged me to keep on pushing forward on that.
Yes,
Dad
that's,
always came to the concerts.
I have to say, my mom was watching, and I also know, as the daughter and as a parent of a musician, I very often, parents would ask me, when will my child start practicing on their own? And I'm like, you know what? Don't hold your breath. And not that I'm not talking, of course, if your child absolutely hates an instrument. But no matter how much you love playing, when it comes to practicing, we all need encouragement. I need to make myself practice sometimes, no matter how I love it. And so, yeah, Samuel, you're just such a great example. That you are obviously a very hardworking individual. You're very smart. You're very musical, but you need that support, right? You need support. People who love you, who are much older than you, who are there for you, and you need encouragement. Sometimes my mom sometimes had to force me to practice, because either you practice or you don't get this or something like that. Those kind of things. Sometimes we just need sometimes to encourage, in different ways, but it's so worth it. And I think, Esther, I know, I had to make you guys practice. But I know that my kids appreciate it. Once they're grown, they stop hating me for that. So yeah, so thank you so much, Samuel. I mean, this was such a pleasure having you. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank your parents for allowing you to do this. And I want to extend an invitation to anyone who is watching right now, whichever level you're at, you know, if you're playing a stringed instrument or anything related, like flute, for example, will work too. If you have students that you would like to showcase, we would love to. If you would like to come on, and please just contact us. And Esther, how do we get communications like that?
Yes, so you will, we'll post it in the comments and or description, probably both. Our Instagram handle, and which is just at Sight String Pros. And then also, if you don't have Instagram, we'll post a link to the contact form on the Diana Sights Violin website so that you can contact us.
Yeah, you can send us an email. And I was thinking this morning, I think since now we're doing every other week, that's our last episode before Valentine's Day. And so you guys, you heard this is beautiful music, played beautifully. So feel free to share it with anyone you love that you want to wish happy Valentine's. Feel free to share this video and let them hear this beautiful music. I think it's just very, very lovely. It communicates so much positive emotion and beautiful playing. So yeah, so you know, just have a wonderful, wonderful rest of this week and next week. This week is over, so next week. So remember, we are now doing it every other week. So our next episode is going to be on February 20th, and we do have something special planned.
Yes, so this is the cello masterclass, right? Or was this Eleonora next?
No, that's cello. That's
yes,
you.
okay, yeah, that's me. So we have a wonderful student from Matamoros who's going to be...
Conservatory.
Yeah, conservatory.
Yeah, we'll list everything in.
Yeah, it's in San Juan, I believe. Or the San Juan Siglo 21.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, but it's
in Matamoros.
It's in Matamoros, but it's called like San Juan, I
think.
But it's Conservatory Matamoros, wonderful cellist. She's going to be playing. Well, we're doing a pre-recorded video because the internet connection was kind of here and there. So we're going to do the pre-recorded video of her playing the Bach, I believe it's a Quran from the first suite. And she's going to be playing that. We're going to do a little master class. And that one, feel free to tune in. It's going to be a little different since it will be a video, but they should be tuning in, so we should be able to interact with them in the comments as well. But yeah, so it's going to be a little different format, but same idea, just talking about the music and different techniques, ways you can practice. So definitely tune in. It's going to be great. And lots of different instruments play Bach, no matter who you are. So definitely tune in, because if you're an instrumentalist, chances are you're going to play Bach at some point. So. Yes,
and Esther is amazing at playing Bach. I love her Bach, and she's already done, actually her very first was cello masterclass, and it was just with flying colors. So you guys, I know you're going to enjoy it. And the students from Conservatory Matamoros, it's a very special for me, meaning because actually one of the heads of that conservatory, the strings, is my former student who used to study at UTRGV. He recently, Joaquin Ruiz Vera, he recently got a master's degree from UTRGV. So that was a couple of years ago, and I really miss you, Joaquin, if you're watching. But and that was actually the last place me and Esther went to that conservatory to play a concert and teach right before the quarantine struck in March. So we haven't seen them because we wanted to go back and do series, and so we're so excited about having the students from that school and just having a little international experience too on our channel. So thank you again, Samuel. Bravo. Everybody give
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really loved it.
Reactions, wonderful reactions in the comments. Thank you so much. It really was a pleasure. And like I said, if you know of anyone who would like to participate, feel free to let us know. We would love to host violinists and other instruments. And that's it for now. Absolutely. So Esther is going to do the honors of disconnecting. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Samuel.
Bye. Great job. Beautiful.